But now I have the control over this, you know, and it's pretty good. That's a pretty decent, alright amount there. So then I'm going to say convert to editable poly. And I can put the UV, don't forget the turbo smooth can go on at any time. But now I want to put some of these motifs on here. And I've shown some of y'all how to do it with decals. We're going to try and do it a little bit differently. And the cool thing is you can still use decals with this method too. So decals is basically multi-materials that have alphas built into them and they're built into the object. This is just going to have two materials which you can apply in your game, any game, at a different time. So I don't have to use this motif when I use this stone. I can use different stuff with this stone. This stone is by itself and this stone can be used in different ways. And then the motif or anything else that I want to be etched into the stone or pulled out of the stone or whatever it is can be just added to it. And that's the power of having a having this kind of tiling texture. And then it's also the power of being able to put multiple textures on top of each other. So what I'm going to do is, excuse me, I'm going to take this and I'm going to do something else. I'm going to come in and I'm going to put another UV unwrap on it. And in this time, I'm going to come over to this thing called UV map channels. UV map channels is, like I said, meaning that I can have multiple UV map channels, and that means it can be unwrapped in different ways. But really, before I do this, let me do something else. Let me put out the material again, and then I'm going to grab this material, this texture here, just a copy of it. Go back down here, look at this. And for right now, I'm just going to go ahead and put it in base color mode too, because I want to have it there so I can see it. And let's make sure it's showing. And, oh, no, hold on one second. There it is. So there it is. It's tiling twice. It's not really what I want it to be doing, but I just want to at least have this material on here, okay? So that's all I'm doing right now is getting the material on here. This is the original one we put out, and you know, depending on how you got it, you could have gotten this. And if you didn't do it through a designer or another way, you can just paint this out yourself, or you can use your original height map information. It works just fine. So that we used in ZBrush. So if you have this, then you can really get an idea of where everything's going to go. And that's what we're going to do at this point. This is going to also be our alpha. So like wherever you can tell here too, wherever it's black, you can see the stone underneath. See how that works? So if you think about that, I could technically put everything down to one dot in black and it would just be not being used at all. Once I have the two materials on top of each other, if I use black, if I put all the UVs into black, it's going to make only the stone showing through. Pretty cool, right? So what that means is this second UV channel we're going to put on here is only going to be for how and where we want our motif stuff to be done. And this is what you're going to do with yours too. And I'll show you how to build the material in a second, but what you're going to do is you're going to put a second UV channel on here and you're going to go to 2. And immediately there's this thing that comes up. And this says, really bad wording from Max. I have no idea why they came up with this. It probably makes sense once I'm used to it, it's fine, but it's just like move or abandon. Abandon is just a really bad choice. It means move the UVs that are already outlined here, or abandon the UVs here and go back to like before it was UV. So if you have UVs in channel 2 already, you want to push abandon because you don't want to overwrite them with what's in channel UV1. Since I don't have anything in UV1 and I just have to go back and re-unwrap it like I did for UV1, I'm going to move it from UV1, which will keep it in UV1. By the way, when it says move, it's not taking it, it's really copying it. And that's another bad turn. It's not moving anything, it's copying it to the second channel, and it's not abandoning it for nothing. It's just not moving it, meaning whatever's there is going to stay there. And by default, it's not mapped. So if I say move and click that button, and then I go look at my UVs, it's going to be exactly like it was. It doesn't look like anything's changed, but if you look over here, it says UV2, UV channel 2. So that's what's different. This is actually only going to affect what's in UV channel 2. And the way you can check that is this. If I take this texture and I scale it in here, nothing is happening. Absolutely nothing. So that's a problem, right? Well, and the other problem with this one too is this scaled our texture really badly too. So that's a problem. We don't want that. Why? How do we get it so we can see what we're looking at here? Well, we need to go back to our material editor, and we need to go to our map that it's using now and tell it up here to be in 2, like that. Now, as I say this, yeah, now it changed. So as I change this, because it's in UV channel 2, it changes the texture. So I'm going to back up here, I'm going to go to this, and then I'm going to do just this button. I will take it and go pack UVs. And I'm not going to worry about stretching at this point because these are so close. I could really pull this back down to where it was, you know, so it's exactly right, and that's fine. And you see in the homework I want you to get this scale right, but I'm not going to be like it has to be exactly what this is because we defined our scale of these textures in here, because it's never going to be that way in a game engine. I mean, you could spend days and days making everything perfect, but it's just not efficient for workflow. So I'm going to take this and move it to where I want it, something like this. This looks pretty close to what the other one is, even if it's stretching underneath here, that's fine. Okay, so now what I do usually is I move stuff I'm not going to be messing with or whatever off the area, and you can do that by just dragging it, moving it, or you can just come over here and type -1 and it'll move it 1 degree over. So I'm set. So the next thing I really want to do is figure out where I want these designs to be and where I don't. I don't want it on the whole thing. I don't want it to overwrap. This is an example of how everything is if it was all there on top of each other. That's really not what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is the motif being on part of it, most of it being stone, and then another motif at the top. So how do I do that? Well, I need to see my wireframe real quick so I can decide I want this area to have some motif on it, and I want this area and maybe even this area to have some, but I'm going to leave most of it not done. Or maybe, you know, it just depends on what I want to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this and say, yeah, maybe I like that. And by the way, turn off your, ignore back facing, grab that. And I'll say, meh, I like that, maybe. And then what I'll do is just do a simple stripe right down the middle. And then I will do these two, and then maybe just this one, which by the way, we'll grab the center now. We can grab that or not, if you, depending on what you want. But then I'm going to come over here and say break, and I'm going to move these back over to my area. Actually, I'm going to move these, I'm going to show you. You can move them that way, or you could just say like 2, and I'll move it over to the other side. This is my dead zone. This is all the stuff that's not going to be colored anymore. So really, what I want to do is just scale these down, and probably better if I take that base pattern and then do it this way so I can see everything. And I'm going to scale this down. All it's really caring about, and it doesn't even matter if it's scaled correctly, is it being in the black area, because we don't want it to be taking up any of the UV space. We're only using this as an alpha to outline where we aren't going to have stuff. So now we have it set up, and I'm hoping it starts to make sense now. Now all I have to do is make these line up correctly with these pieces over here. So I'll come back to this one. I'm going to say, okay, this piece right here, which is probably that piece too. So what I'll do is I'll go this, grab this, do this one, and then I'm going to come back over, and as soon as I move, it'll pop back up. And usually what I do is I have this up on the top, one of my screens, and then the top screen, and then this right here, so I can go full screens. But I'll try and bear with it. So I'm going to take this, and I'm going to put this heart symbol. And the big thing you want to try and make sure you do is get these at least to the edge, because that way you know that it's tiling, right? So there's that one. Probably not the one I meant to do, but that's fine. And then I'm going to grab this one, do the same thing. I'm going to take a look. It's a little bit thinner. I could do this. I could just scale it up. And you know what, for now, for this version, maybe I'll do that. I probably could have grabbed another one and made my life a little bit easier, but hindsight's always 20/20. So what I'll do is I'll make this twice as big, probably. Almost 3 times. And it gives me this nice tight thing. Now, don't forget, I need to make this, whatever I end up doing, it needs to be tileable. So either I have to scale it in this way, so it matches this way, which I don't yet have, like that. that. Or I have to scale it the other way, you know, and did it stretch it out? A little bit it did, absolutely. But it's made this higher resolution area smaller in this area, so it'll look fine. And it's within, you know, tiny amounts. Okay. The other thing we can do now is start looking at this stuff. So I'm going to grab this one. Oh, I did grab the interior. So I'm going to grab these by one piece. I'm going to take this one and move it out of the way, like I do. And then I'm going to come here and grab this one and move it out of the way and grab this one's fine. Okay. So then I'm going to take these two. They don't really matter, but I'm going to assume that they didn't put tiling textures in the inside of their vases. So I'm just going to go ahead and put these over in the same area. Again, it's black. It's just looking at the 1 pixel black. It's all that really matters. So just that right there. Okay, now I can come back to here. All right. So I have this, and I'm going to take this one right here, and then I'm going to figure out where I want it. I think I'm going to try and do this one. I'm going to go back to 0, 1 because I think 0, 1 is always the best place to be if I can. I'm going to look at this. Obviously, I can scale it up a little bit. And again, we're just trying to make sure it tiles because we don't want our vases to be weird. Like this. And we could break it down a little bit. Get a heavier black line underneath it. Now remember, any black is going to be the stone color at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and move it back up here. Basically, it ends at this point. Okay, and then I come back to this one. Do the same kind of thing. Now this one, I probably could have grabbed something bigger, but what I'll do is I'll just use this one here. And again, scale it. I'm holding shift while I drag the edges so it's always locked in position here. Got to make sure you don't have any overlap because you're going to get those little weird bug looking things. Like that. And then this one. You know what, let's put those flower or those little spade things on top of it too. So I'm going to come here, I'm going to grab it over, get as close as I can to this edge. Kind of want to have a repeating motif, so if you can, and hold shift and just drag it out. There we go. Shift 2. Okay, so now I've got this unwrapped in different parts without, with 2 different materials basically. Okay, so is everybody getting this? Does that make sense? Pretty cool, right? The power. Okay, so, and this is the way every game does it now. And then again, now the cool thing is it's unwrapped. Both of them are unwrapped. If you want to do a third one, Max wants you to have another unwrapped. You don't stack them and change them and stack them because it will just keep them. That's one of the things I forgot about Max, and I was playing with it earlier, and I knew there was something that I was doing wrong that I'd done before years ago, and that was it. So if you want to have 3 channels, you need to close this channel, add another channel, go to 3, mess with that one. Just so you know, you can't just go back to 3 and 2 and change them and make them work together, because basically whatever channel you started with, it will get broken. So, okay, so now I have this, but obviously it's got something to do with this. So this is where we're going to get into the material part. Okay, material part's a little bit more complicated than necessarily it needs to, but I'm going to be hopefully able to explain it to you in a way that is basically what the engines are going to be doing. They're just doing it more efficiently and better. Okay, so we're doing it a little bit more complicated in here, I guess, but you'll get it.